Welcome everyone to day number 2. And I was basically talking about day 1. When you're setting your goal, make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And if you have to improve more than one pillar, great, I do understand. But do not target 2 pillars at one time. Just focus on one pillar, strengthen it, then you can move on to the next pillar. This is how we will be working. All right. Everyone is muted, I guess. And please do stay muted, so we could not get any kind of noise. Perfect, guys. Okay, so now we are going to talk today a very important thing, and that is habit. Let me tell you, when we start something, we are super motivated and we feel like we are going to do anything to achieve this goal. But motivation does fade away. So what we really need to have is, let me admit some of the people are trying to join in. So what we really need to have is the habit in place. Because once we build a habit, then we do not really need to have motivation, because motivation does not last. You must have experienced this. Sometimes you are super motivated. You feel like, no, I'm going to improve my English now. And as the time passes by, let's say a week passes by, and you go back to your normal routine. So I do not want that for you. And for that reason, this session will be dedicated to building a strong habit when it comes to learning English. And of course, it is useful for other areas of your life as well. But specifically, we will be talking how you can build a strong habit for your English learning. That's incredibly important, because I'm not going to be here for all the time. You need to have your habit as your guide, as your coach, who will be accompanying you all the time. Alrighty, so for that, I'm going to take you to my slides. Then we'll talk about building habits. Alrighty, let me share my screen. Okay. So I believe you guys can see the screen of mine. If you can, please put me yes, so I could get to know. So just confirm anyone that you can see the screen. Let me see the timing. Most probably you can see the screen, but I need to confirm because, you know, take some times. All right. Ella confirms. Thanks, Ella. Alrighty. So today's the day 2. And today we'll be talking about building language learning habits that last. So I'm gonna take you to this specific topic where I will be dissecting everything about habit. And you will get a new perspective what habit is and how you can form a good habit, not a bad habit. And we will also look at bad habits and how we can break them. So let me tell you what we're going to talk today. In today's class, we'll be talking about what habits are, types of habits related to English language, what causes behavior change. We'll also talk about good habits versus bad habits. Then we'll talk about how to support good habits, because sometimes we do build good habits, but after some time or after some days, it just went away. But we will be looking at some practical points which will tell us how we can support good habits. I'll also tell you if you have some bad habits, how you can break your bad habits. 1 second. Let me press it. So this is what we're going to talk today. And we will be talking everything in a practical way. And I love to use simile and analogy so you could really understand all these things in the most practical way. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. So if you have motivation, you can start something. But if you really want to keep going, you need to have the habit. And it's said by Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was a great man. And if you are aware of Tony Robbins, a great life coach and business coach, he is one of the best coaches of this planet. His teacher is Jim Rohn. So let's start with the question, what is a habit? A habit is a routine of behavior that is repeated regularly and tends to occur subconsciously, such as brushing your teeth, drinking coffee in the morning. These are habits. So habit is something which happens repeatedly and it happens subconsciously. And when I say subconsciously, it means you really do not very carefully think about that. If you have a habit of nail biting, you really do not think about it. You just bite your nail. So this is a habit. So any behavior that happens again and again, and it's happening subconsciously, like brushing your teeth, it happens almost like every day, and you really do not really think about it. Of course, you go to take your brush and you use the paste and you brush your teeth, but you really do not think about every aspect of that. Why? Because it's in your habit. Just same with drinking tea or coffee in the morning. We just have coffee and tea in the morning. It's a habit. So basically, when it comes to learning English, there are 3 kinds of habits we have to take into our consideration. Number 1, learning habits. You have set the goal, but if you want to get to your goal, you have to have a learning habits. Otherwise, that's just a dream. You will not get to your goal if you do not have learning habits. So you need to make your study time and practice time. Without this, you are not going to get to your goal. Then we have a speaking practice or speaking habits. If you want to achieve fluency in any language, you have to have this habit too. Without a speaking habit, you will not get fluent in any language. The third habit is thinking habits. And this is very critical as well, because if you have been attending my sessions, one thing I have been putting very emphasis on is the mindset. And there is a very specific reason. When I was working on my English communication, I had a terrible mindset. I was really struggling inside. And when you are struggling inside, it doesn't matter what you consume. You just consume the best quality teaching. Still, you will not get the full result out of that. For that reason, your thinking habit is very important. What kind of beliefs you have? What is your thinking pattern? What kind of thoughts do you really have in your mind related to English? You feel English is difficult or you feel English is easy? So all these things are very important to have for your success. So we just got to know there are 3 habits related to your English: learning habits, speaking habits, and the third one is thinking habits. From now on, I'm going to take you deep into learning habits because that is the primary one, which is the most important for us to get our goal, which we set the last class. So let me tell you, habits are formed out of 3-step cycle. So what do I mean? If you have a habit, and if you really think about that, you'll get to know that your habit was formed in these 3 steps. Step 1 is trigger. And trigger is something that really sparks the habit. I'll give you an example in a minute, then it will be clear to you. But just let's go through all these steps. Step 1, trigger. Step 2, routine, the actual habit. And step 3 is reward. What do you get from doing the action, doing the routine? So when I say trigger, it's like some kind of stuff that sparks you to do that routine which you are doing. For example, let's say someone is a smoker. A smoker is someone who smokes cigarette. So in that case, the trigger would be, let's say he stresses out. He has a lot of tension. He's really stressing out. That stress can be a trigger. Since he's a smoker, that stress will be demanding, hey, smoke a cigarette. So that stress just sends a signal to his mind, start smoking. So that is a trigger. And then what does he do? He goes, he takes a cigarette and he smokes. So that is the actual action, the actual habit. So this is the second step, but that's not the end. Then the third step is the reward. And reward is once he smokes, now he feels relaxed. His stress goes out. Now he feels good. He feels light-minded. So this is a kind of reward. And since he feels very good about smoking, now it's his habit. So whenever he feels this kind of feeling, stress, tension, he goes through this cycle. There is a trigger, then routine, then reward. Let me give you one more example. Let's say there is a person who goes to a party and he's a very introvert kind of person. Like he does not like talking to different people. He does not like to be in a social setting. So once he enters the party, he starts feeling some kind of butterfly in the stomach and in the belly. And this feeling is a trigger. So what he may do is he'll just take out his phone and he'll just start looking into his phone. So this is the actual habit. And this habit is saving that person from going out and socializing with others. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, if you really carefully look at your any habit, good habit, bad habit, that is designed in these 3 steps. There is a trigger, then that trigger gets you to the next stage. You do the real action, then there is a reward of that action. So this is how any habit is formed out of 3 cycles. Now, a very important question. What causes a behavior to change? because you want to change your behavior. If you do not study English on a daily basis, this is a bad habit and you want to change it. You want to change your behavior. You want to study on daily basis. So we really have to understand what are the things that really change the behavior. So let's talk about them. And we'll be talking about a model that is called the Fogg behavior model. And here there are 3 components. And if you want to change your behavior, you need to have these 3 components happening simultaneously at the same time. And these components are, number 1, motivation. If you want to change your behavior, let's say you want to study English, and up until this point, you do not have this behavior. So number 1 thing that is mandatory, compulsory for this behavior to occur is motivation. The question is, are you motivated to do it? Means, are you motivated to study English? If you are motivated, great. You have 1 component. The second component is ability. Ability is very important. It means, is it simple to perform? That means, is it possible for you to do it? For example, if you have this passion to fly an aeroplane, let's say you are very motivated to do it, but are you able to do that? No, that is not in your capability power. You cannot fly an aeroplane at this moment. So whatever you want to adopt, any behavior, you have to make sure that should be under your ability power. For that reason, we always start something small, and we'll talk about that. So this is the second component, ability. The third component is prompt, and it is something like trigger, which I just talked about. Are you triggered to do it? If these 3 things come together and work simultaneously, you will change your behavior. If you adopt a new behavior, it is because you get all these 3 things in that behavior and you adopt that behavior. So you have to really think about it. The thing which you want to have, are you having all these 3 things? Do you have motivation? Do you have the ability? Or are you really triggered to do it? And I'll be talking with prompt in more detail in upcoming slides. But just think, the way I gave you one example about a smoker, when they feel stressed, this is kind of a prompt. And this is very common these days. You must have heard ChatGPT prompt. You give a prompt and you get the answer. So this is something like that. I'll talk about that. So this is the Fogg behavior model. You have to remember, if you want to change your behavior, you have to have all these 3 components, these 3 ingredients: motivation, ability, prompt. When trying to acquire a new habit, a new behavior, all 3 parts need to occur at the same time. All 3 parts: motivation, ability, and the last one is prompt. These 3 components. Now, let me just walk you through all the cycle. So I told you that we have to have these 3 components if we want to have a new behavior: motivation, prompt, ability. So we have these 3 components. Then once we get the prompt, we get the trigger, we get a new habit, or we form a new habit, we create a new habit. And once that habit is done, we have a reward. So this is how everything works. Now let's talk about bad habits versus good habits. And I just want to tell you guys that it could look like to you that we are not talking actual English, but let me tell you, this is way more important than that. And it is directly connected to English. We'll get into that. But let's say if you create a habit, then you have something which is going to accompany all the time. And that is really important. So bad habits versus good habits. Good habits are the ones that bring us closer to our destined identity, or we can say our goal. So if something is a good habit, that action is really taking us close to our desired identity or identity, whatever we want to have. For example, you have set your 90-day goal. And if you are doing something which is taking you closer to that goal, that is a good habit. And if there is something which is moving you away from that goal, that is a bad habit. For example, if you have an opportunity to speak to a customer care over phone, but out of fear, you just back out and you ask your brother or sister to make the call and do the talking with the customer care. This is a bad habit. Why? Because you just throw this opportunity away, which you had. And this inaction is not going to take you closer to your goal. Your goal is to speak English, but you just did a bad habit. So you really have to think, whatever you're doing, is it a good habit? Is it taking you close to your goal? Or is it moving you away from your goal? Now let's talk about triggers. This is very important. And once you understand this, now you'll see, my goodness, why do I spend hours on Insta Reels, Shorts, TikTok? TikTok is banned, but we keep watching all these things. Why? Because let's say you got a pop-up on your phone, a notification, and you just click on it, and then you keep watching reels after reels after reels. So it all started from a trigger, from a prompt. So you really have to understand that. Let's talk about it. When we are talking about triggers or prompts, there are two kinds of triggers: hot triggers, cold triggers. When I'm talking about hot triggers, these are the triggers which we can do instantly. For example, let's say you got a notification on your phone. You can easily just tap on the notification and you will get to that notification feed where that notification will take you. So it is very easy for you. Notification, that is a trigger, and it's a hot trigger because that's easy to execute. Cold trigger are those triggers which you feel like doing. You get the signal that I should be doing this, but that is not possible for you to do instantly. For example, let's say you are in a meeting, you're working, and you feel like you want to practice your English, but that's not possible. You are in a meeting with your boss or maybe your co-workers, so that is not a suitable time for you to practice. Another example would be, let's say, hot trigger could be you're walking, and on the way, you saw a coffee shop and you just smell the coffee. It smells delicious. Then you can just go to the coffee shop, have the coffee. It's very easy. So that smell which you got from the coffee shop, that is a hot trigger. But let's say you are in a bathroom, you're having your shower, and you have a very strong desire to have coffee. And there is no other body who can help you out with that coffee. So even if you have a strong desire, you want to have a cup of coffee, you cannot take the cup of coffee at that very moment because you're in your bathroom, you're having your shower. So you can have the coffee only after the bath. So that is the cold trigger. Give me 1 second, guys. So I just made you understand the difference between hot triggers and cold triggers. We'll see why we are talking about the difference. And once we have that trigger, and when we do the action, we have reward. For example, when a baby, a small boy or girl, when they have chocolate, you must have seen they feel very excited, right? They have this feeling, wow, I just had a chocolate. You can look at their face and you can feel the joy, right? So that is a reward. For example, if you're a smoker, when you are smoking, you are feeling the sensation, you're feeling, wow, it feels great. In cold, when you have your cold drink, you feel the reward. It really suits your body because you are feeling hot outside. And when you have that cold drink, you feel the reward. So every habit has a reward. Now, when it comes to reward, there are two types of reward we have. Number one, immediate reward. So there are a lot of actions or habits which you do and you get the reward instantly. That's good. I just smoke the cigarette, I can feel that the stress just goes away. This is immediate reward. But there is another reward that is deferred reward. And deferred reward is not instant. You do not get it right away. For example, if you listen to English 15 minutes, you do not get the result instantly. But you know that this is going to give you result in future. But this is not an instant result. So we really have to understand immediate reward, that we feel the reward instantly right after the habit. But deferred reward is that reward which is not instant. You're gonna get the reward for sure, but that will be in the future. And what or why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you have to be aware. What usually happens, bad habits have hot triggers. Hot triggers means you can very easily execute that, and they have immediate rewards. While the good habits, which we are trying to form, which we are trying to build for our learning English, that we're trying to build, have cold triggers and deferred rewards. So this is why we build bad habits very fast. Why? It's hot trigger. It's easy to do. You can do it very easily. Let me look at the chat. Someone has posted something. All righty. Can I smell delicious? All right. So bad habits. Now you can see why bad habits stick to us very easily. Why do we get the bad habits very easily? But to form a good habit, it's freaking hard. The reason is very simple. Because usually bad habits have hot triggers. That means you get the signal, your mind feels like that, and you can do it instantly. And you can get the reward instantly. And when we get the reward instantly, we feel like doing that task again and again. But good habits, usually they have cold triggers. That means you get the signal, but you cannot maybe do it instantly. And the result or the reward is not instant. For example, if you keep studying an hour a day, maybe you do not feel any change right away. So that is a deferred reward. That means you're going to get the reward for sure, but that will be in the future. So what we're going to do here is we are going to trick our mind. So of course, we want to form a good habit. So to form a good habit, we want to make sure it has a hot trigger and an immediate reward. So of course, some triggers are natural, like stress. That was a natural trigger. And there was a reward. But if we want to form a good habit, what we need to do is we have to make the hot trigger and an immediate reward. And for that, I can tell you, you can do this. For example, let's say you have your coffee every morning at 10 a.m. I'm just giving you an example. So you enjoy having coffee. So what you can do to manipulate your mind, you're going to have your coffee at 10 a.m. So set your practice time between 9:30 to 10. So that means once you complete your practice from 9:30 to 10, right after completing the practice, you can have your coffee. So what you really did was you added an instant reward. Now your mind cannot tell the difference. You practiced, and right after that, you had your coffee. Now you got the immediate reward. Of course, just 30 minutes of practice will not get you the results right away, but that coffee will be a reward for you. And when it comes to trigger, we can create the triggers by ourselves. For example, if you want to learn how to play the guitar, what you can do is you can simply put the guitar before your bed. So whenever you wake up early in the morning, you look to the guitar. Now that guitar will trigger your mind that you have to learn the guitar. So this is how we can do that. And I have seen many of the students, successful students, they do all of this stuff in their study room. Let me admit, someone is waiting in the waiting room. Okay, so some people are joining right now. See guys, some people joined on the right time. Some people are joining right now. And I do understand you might get some of the stuff, but if you prioritize your success, I really encourage you to be punctual and be serious. The number one thing for success is responsibility. And responsibility is response plus ability. So I always look at responsibility as it is the response of your ability. So if you have a higher ability, your response will look like that. So please be serious and be punctual so we could have all these sessions with a focused vision. All right, let's get to the topic back. So I'm saying that we have to just add triggers. And for that, I was just saying some students, they just design their study room like all those vision boards, some inspiring quotes, some inspiring pictures, and all those things are triggers. So when you look at all those stuff, they trigger your mind and you are more likely to do the action. So this is how you can form the habit. So now that you understood, to build a habit, we have to have immediate reward and hot trigger. So you have to really create hot trigger and immediate reward. That's only the situation where you can form a good habit very easily. We'll talk about that, how you can do that. And to stop bad habits, we want to turn hot triggers into cold triggers. So on one hand, I told you, if you want to form a good habit, you have to have heart trigger, and that heart trigger and the immediate reward. Someone is just doing in some setting that is distracting me. 1 second. Kabir is waiting in the waiting room. All right. Okay. So that was for a good habit. For bad habits, what we need to do is we have to change heart triggers. As I told you, usually the bad habits have heart triggers. So we have to change hot triggers into cold triggers. For example, let's say you have a bad habit of using your phone a lot. So what you can do is you can just turn it off. So now you have changed hot triggers into cold triggers. So it was very easy for you to just access your phone. If it's on, you'll get the notifications. And now it's easy for you to just click the notifications and you'll get into social medias, and everyone knows what happens. Sometimes we get sucked into social medias and we keep watching the videos after videos on our feeds, and an hour passes by. So you have to be careful about that. You have to change hot triggers that will lead you to the bad habits. That hot trigger should be changed into cold triggers. I just gave you one example. You can turn your notifications off. You can turn your phone off. You can do such things. And Benjamin Franklin said, it's easier to prevent bad habits than to break them. So it's always easier to prevent bad habits. So you should be very careful before you build or form bad habits. Once the habit is formed and it's a bad habit, it is very difficult to break. So you have to be careful in the initial stage. Now let's talk about how to support good habits. So now I told you, if you want to create a good habits, what you need to do is you have to attach immediate reward and hot trigger to all of those habits which you want to form. Now, once you start good habit, now you have to sustain it, because research says to form a habit, it requires like at least 21 days. And it really depends on the habit. Max, it can go up to 8 months to create, to form a new habit. So 21 days to 8 months. That is the period to form a habit. It really depends on the habit, what kind of habit you are trying to form. On an average, it takes 66 days. So that means you have set your goal for the 90 days. And if you just keep doing all these things for 90 days, you will have a lot of good habits, a lot of good learning habits. So let's talk about how you can support your good habits. Number one thing, start small, start simple. And many times what happens when we start something new, we start to think about all the things. For example, if you want to speak very confidently, then you start to think about, I have to do these many hours of practice. I have to talk to people. I have to just learn these many vocabulary, and you start all of these things, and all these things really discourage you. So I want you to just start small and start simple, because simplicity really encourages you. And I told you yesterday that there is a quote from Tony Robbins: complexity is the enemy of execution. In the same way, if you have something simple, you are more likely to do that. So always focus on a small step. For example, today we are talking about how you can build or form a good habit. So just think about this, how you can form a good habit. Do not think about how you are going to practice your pronunciation, how you're going to speak to others. Just focus on this step. This will really help you. Another point which I just talked about, focus on the first step. Of course, you have to go through all the steps, but right now, one step at a time. For example, if you have to go upstairs, if you have to go on your roof, and if you think about all the stairs, then it will feel overwhelming. My goodness, I have to take all this. But if you just focus on one step, that would be very easy for you to execute. Another thing that would help you to support your good habits, and I personally use this and I highly encourage you to do this. Create a habit streak. And for this, you can use any mobile apps. There's a ton of apps on your Play Store, Apple Store, Play Store, Google Play Store. You'll find a lot of habit tracking apps where you will find this option. Let's say you have created a plan for your goal. So once this is done, just cross it out. So what it does to your mind, let's say you did your task for 3 consecutive days on a daily basis. Now, when you look back, you will see that you have achieved something in these 3 days. You were regular. So this really encourages your mind, and this does help. If you do not want to use phone apps, of course, you can use this on calendar or anything like that. But do create your habit streak. Another thing which is super important is design your environment. And if you want to have the best outcome, you have to have a better environment. And here are a couple of the pointers which might help you to design your environment. Number 1, create your English sanctuary. English sanctuary is like a special place where you have to sit down and study your English. That is step 1. Step 2, create a distraction-free space. So you have to create a space where you do not get any distraction. You do not get any extra noise. You have to just keep your phone away from that if your phone distracts you. So you have to create a distraction-free space. Another thing which is very important is be in the community. And it might look to you that I'm talking at one place, that you have to stay distraction-free. And at the other hand, I'm telling you to live in the community. So I always encourage you to stay in the community, because you must have heard human is a social animal. So we all thrive together. If you are doing something all by yourself, all alone, it takes more energy, more time. But if you are in a community, if you are with like-minded people, like we have these people in this community, we have the same kind of mindset. We all try to improve our English. So try to be in the community. Next, get inspired. And for that, I told you that you can have your vision board. You can just stick some kind of picture or image in front of you. Let's say you want to be a great public speaker, so you can stick someone who is speaking to the crowd, to the public, and just imagine that is me. So that will inspire you. That will remind you again and again that you have to become a public speaker. So you can do that too. And for all of these things, I'm gonna make everything super simple, like I made yesterday. I gave you a template to make you a 90-day goal, where we have incorporated all the things like specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. And I just give you one simple template, which you can just put your specific information and your goal is ready. In the same way, I know I have talked about all those things because I wanted you to just experience them. I wanted you to become aware of all those points. But now I'm going to give you one statement that will be covering everything what we discussed. And this is super powerful. And that is called the implementation intention. What is that? This is a technique to implement a behavior a new habit, and of course we want to form a good habit. No one wants to form bad habits on purpose. So we are going to use a technique that's called implementation intention. When you set an implementation intention, you're pre-committing to do or to when, let me say it again, I messed up. So when you set an implementation intention, you're pre-committing, like you're making a pre-commitment to when the habit, when a specific time is going to happen. That way, you do not have to feel motivated to do the work. So if you really set everything and you're crystal clear, this is the time I'm going to do this action. This is the place where I'm going to do the action. And this is what I'm going to do, specifically speaking, listening, reading, writing, then it would be crystal clear to you. And for that, you do not need any kind of motivation. And here is that mantra. The implementation intention, which I was talking about, is this statement. And I want you to take a screenshot of this slide, because this would be your mini assignment for today's session. It looks like this. I will, and your new habit, the habit which you want to form, then on day, you have to specifically mention which day. You can mention every day if you want to do every day, but you can even mention on Monday if you just want to do on Monday. You can mention Mondays, every Mondays, Sundays. So you have to mention the day on this, and then you have to also mention the time, exact time, what time you're gonna do that action. You have to have all clarity. And then you are also gonna mention the place where you are gonna do that action. So it may look like this. I have just given you an example. I will, new habit, study English. You can even make it listen to English, read English, write English. You can just change as per your need on every day. If you want to do that action every day at 7 a.m., I told you, you have to attach to your some kind of habit, which is giving you some reward, immediate reward, like having coffee. So you have to set your time around that. That would be really beneficial for you. So you have to set the time here. In my house, where are you going to do that? You have to also mention that in my house, in my room, in my hall. All right. So you have to mention that. So you have to make this a statement, and this statement is going to give you implementation intention. That means you're going to implement a new habit intentionally by knowingly. So take this screenshot. I want everyone to write their statement, implementation intention, and you have to post it in the group. That would be your mini assignment. Alrighty, so up until this point, I told you how you can just be aware of all the things, how a habit is formed, and how you can use this implementation intention statement to form a good or better habit for you. Now, let's say we all have some bad habits. So now how can we break them? How can we break bad habits? Don't do like this. Don't take your punch and hit the glass. Maybe you'll not break the habit. You'll break your knuckles. You'll break your punches. So don't do that. Don't copy that picture. I'm just representing how you can break your habit. Number one thing, you have to make a list of all your bad English habits. So just sit down and get clear on this. What are the bad habits related to English do you have? For example, You avoid speaking English. This is a bad habit. Why? Remember, bad habit is something which is moving you away from your dream, right? So make a list. Think, what bad habits do you have? And just make the list of them. And then increase friction with bad habits. I told you, if you have some bad habits, for example, if you have this bad habit of using your phone a lot, then you can just increase friction. And how can you do that? Just turn it off. Just, if you're, let's say this is your sanctuary where you are supposed to study, this is your study room, and it is time for you to study, do not take your phone with you. Do not keep the phone on your table, because sometimes it happens. It's funny that if there is no notification, we might feel like, oh my goodness, maybe my phone is not working. Let me check if it's working or not. So you have to be very careful about it. And we have been very distracted because of phone only. So we should not be getting used by the phone. We should be using the phone for our own purpose, for our own benefit. Remember, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So anything you do all through the day, that is a kind of a vote for the person you want to become. So if you smoke cigarette, that is a vote for you, what you want to become in the future. If you study English, this is a kind of a vote for you, what you're going to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. And this is where we get tricked. We think, oh, this is just one action. Let me do that. But you do not understand that small things, they build up one after one, and they just stack up. And when they stack up, then they just change you into that kind of person. So if you do a small bad habit every day, you feel like I'm just doing one thing and it's not going to change anything. It's not going to transform anything. But over the time, it does change you. So you have to be very careful about your every action. And most of the time, I'm just walking you through all these things because I want you to be aware of these things, because self-awareness is very crucial. Alrighty, my friend, this is the time for us to just recap what we discussed. We talked about what habits are, types of habits related to English language, speaking, learning, and thinking. What causes behavior to change? We talked about that. Good habits versus bad habits. How to support good habits. And I also told you how you can break bad habits. That's the end of today's session. Now is the time for us to put all the things we discussed into practice. Because like I told you, all these things are like paint. And just think, if you keep the paint inside of a container and you do not apply it on a wall, you are never gonna look, or you're never gonna get the beauty of that paint. It's the same with education. It's the same with whatever I'm teaching you. If you just keep all these things and store it inside of your mind and you never use it, this is not gonna do any good for you. All right, my friends. So yesterday we had a conversation group and I noticed that some of you, as I invited you to get into the conversation group, someone left, and I was trying to just connect with you some new people, and when I just connected with them, they just left or they were not speaking. So I'm telling you, of course, it does not feel very comfortable to come out of your shell and speak, and all these negative experiences might have put you in a situation where you have this fear of judgment. Like, oh my goodness, if I make a mistake, I will be judged. They will think I'm not smart enough. But my guys, I want you to understand, if you want to get fluent, you have to make mistakes. You have to embrace your mistakes. I always look at mistakes like mistake is a currency of your success. And if you want to get to your desired outcome, you have to make a specific number of mistakes. For example, let's say you have to make 1,000 mistakes to get to your fluency. So if you do not speak and you do not make a mistake, you still have 10,000 mistakes to make. But if you somehow speak and you make 2 mistakes, that means you have lost 2 mistakes. Now you have to only make 9,998 mistakes. So make mistakes. No one is perfect. Everyone does a mistake. We all make mistakes with our own language. So we have to really come out of this mindset that we are going to be perfect. No one is perfect. All right, so I just want you guys to let me know. Actually, I did not plan for any conversation group, but I could come up with a very quick topic and I can give you some topics to talk on. So if you want to get into the conversation group, just give me your vote in the chat that you're in. You want to get into the conversation group. If everyone confirms, then I will send you in a topic. I'll be looking into the chat. Please do let me know if you are up to this challenge. Let me see. All right, Manoj is ready. I'll give you the topic. Let me see. I'm getting yeses. Shweta, Jamila, Sanjit, Manoj, Anil. Great to hear that. These only people, 4 people already left. Okay, so it seems to me most of you are interested. So let me once again very quickly explain how it works. In a moment, I'm going to tell you the topic. And under the main topic, we will have some sub-questions. And I do understand if I just throw you a topic and tell you to speak on just one topic, your mind may not come up with ideas. So to make that process easier, I have just chosen one topic, main topic, and under that main topic, I have also selected or curated some sub-questions related to the main topic. So when you get all these questions, you are very much likely to get ideas and you can speak. So that is how we will be covering the topic. The next process is, in a moment, I will be sending you in a breakout room. So this is the main room where we are. Everyone is here. Breakout room, you'll be getting a pop-up on your screen. Once you click on join, you'll be redirected to your breakout room where you will find your partner. So it will be one-on-one talking, like 2 people will be there and they will be talking to each other. So you will have your question in front of you. You can ask one question to your friend and he can answer you. Then you can ask one question or he can ask one question. So you can just go this, one person will ask, another will tell, then another will ask, one person will tell. So this is how it will work. All right, so let me tell you the topic. I just came up with this topic and I'm gonna send you the sub questions. The topic is, I'm feeling hungry, so I decided to choose your favorite food. That is the main topic. So you have to speak about your favorite food. Everyone loves eating, I guess. Everyone does. But under that, these are some sub questions. Let me, oh, it looks really, one second. Let me put the serial number so you do not get confused. I have put the sub questions in the chat, but they look really, let me do this, put this space. Give me 1 second, quick guys. I'm just making the things simpler for you so you do not have to use your mind a lot, especially in the beginning. Anyway, you or we do not use our mind a lot. We use almost like 3 to 7%, I guess. All right, okay. Now it's ready. I'm gonna send all these sub questions in the chat. Okay, it shows it's long, so let me send it in 2 sections. All right, these are the all right, so now I have posted some sub questions under our main topic, and the topic is your favorite food. Now, once you go into the breakout room, please copy all these sub questions so you can look into the screen. You can also minimize that, and you can ask one question to your friend, then he will be just giving his ideas, and then it will be interchanged. All right, so I'm gonna set the breakout room. We will have 10-minute conversation. After 10 minutes, I will bring you back into the main room. Then we will have the final talk. Then we will leave for our dinner time. All right, let me say. All right, everyone. So it was really great to just spend this time with you. And I really hope that you got a very specific structure planned, how you can form a good habit, which is very essential because motivation goes, habit lasts. We'll see you tomorrow for a very important session. And a lot of people have these concerns that I don't know how to build vocabulary, but I'll be giving you a very simple roadmap which will help you tremendously to build up your vocabulary so you could just express whatever you want to express. All right, Uma, I really appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much.